All right, good afternoon, everybody, and happy St. Patrick's Day. We are here just to talk in a general update about where we are in our battle against the coronavirus, and in particular, just to remind everybody about how important it is to stay vigilant. As you know, the governor has lifted restrictions on a large number of venues, lifting capacity restrictions at restaurants, houses of worship, and so many other places. What we want to make sure everyone recognizes is that, number one, the social distancing limits are still in place. So although capacity limits have been lifted, you still have to make sure that you're maintaining that 6 feet of distance. As everybody knows, you got to continue to wear your mask at your restaurants, except when you're eating, but you got to continue to wear that mask. Last week, we held a call with a number of our faith institutions to talk to them about the lifting of restrictions and about the measures that continue to be important to protect the health and well-being of our community. And we have also distributed many hundreds of masks already, but an invitation to distribute thousands of masks to our faith institutions so that they can get those masks out, high-quality fabric masks out, to their congregations, so that we have just one more way to help work together with our faith institutions to keep their members safe. Look, we've made a lot of progress in this pandemic. We are seeing far fewer cases today than we were just a couple of months ago. But on St. Patrick's Day, it's worth remembering that that progress has not been because of luck. It's been because of the work that our whole community has done to keep one another safe. That means wearing our masks, washing our hands, watching our distance from one another, and all of that remains as important as ever, even as we move into this next phase and even as the capacity restrictions get lifted this Friday. The other thing I wanted to say is, for much of this year, we talked a lot about the importance of testing and how important it is, if you have any reason to think that you may have been exposed or any reason that you just want that comfort of knowing that you're not carrying the virus, to go get tested. For obvious reasons, our attention has shifted to vaccinations, and we want people to get vaccinated. But we thought it was worth just taking a minute to remind everybody that you should still get tested if you have any reason at all to think you should get tested. We have still one of the most accessible and robust testing systems that you'll find anywhere. Our testing sites remain open. You don't need to pay, you don't need prescription, you don't need symptoms, and again, we'll give you a ride. So please, don't forget about the importance of testing, even as we talk so much about the importance of the vaccination effort at this stage of the game. Lastly, let me just say that we have continued to focus hard on our contact tracing efforts, even as the number of cases has gone down. And we've continued to be successful in that outreach. Our team was able to contact about 98% of those reported positive in January, and about 99% of those reported positive in February. And that number had went down from about 2,700 in January to about 1,100 in February. So again, a significant drop. What that means is we're going to continue to stay focused on contact tracing, but we're also going to be using some of our contact tracers to strengthen our outreach effort and make sure that we've got even more folks making those outbound calls to help encourage people to get the vaccine, to help people get that appointment and actually get vaccinated at one of our many community sites. That's a quick update on some of the things that we're doing. I also just wanted to share that we are handing out, both to our houses of worship and to our restaurants, some flyers that just detail the requirements that remain in place. They're both in English and Spanish. I've got an English version for the restaurant poster and a Spanish version for the houses of worship, but we've got them in both. And so we are distributing through our inspectors, as well as together with our Chamber of Commerce, we will be distributing these guidelines for restaurants effective March 19th, reminding folks that even though the capacity limits are increased, There's still that 8-person per table maximum. There is still the requirement that dining rooms close at 11 p.m., that commercial venues have that limitation of 100 people indoors and 200 outdoors, and again, that face coverings and social distancing remain required. For our houses of worship, this is really just a review of those basics that we've been talking about for so long: washing your hands, wearing your mask, and keeping that distance from those who are not in your household. So that's really all that we wanted to share today. I know that there's not a lot of new news there, but as we continue to press forward on the vaccination effort, we thought it was important just to take a step back and revisit some of those things that we've been talking about so much over the course of this past year. Because while we're making progress and while there is light at the end of the tunnel, we cannot let down our guard. We are still responsible for the course of this pandemic. We're in a race here. We've got to continue to get those vaccinations out. We know the virus continues to mutate, and we see new variants. We know the virus continues to spread. So we're battling it in every way we can, but we have to all stay focused on those basics that have become second nature to most of us over this past year, and we just can't let down our guard quite yet. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Are there any, Mayor, any sort of efforts as far as when we start to loosen our restrictions? We've talked a lot about when people maybe partake in drinking, their comfort level, their distancing becomes a little skewed. Are there going to be any efforts from the city to check on restaurants and make sure that they're aligning
Sure.
these distancing rules?
Yeah, we've had our inspectors going out for many months, and whenever they can, they do that in a collaborative, constructive way, and just remind our restaurants and other venues of the importance of honoring all of the requirements that are in place. We're going to continue to do that. We're not playing gotcha here. We're not out to get anybody, and we're thrilled that we're at a place in this pandemic where the governor and his team could make the decision to lift those capacity limits, and where our restaurants can begin to welcome more folks. But we're going to continue to stay focused on making sure that those common sense requirements that are still in place are respected and honored, because it's critical to maintaining the progress that we've made.
A lot of businesses aren't, running up against their current capacities just because things are so
Sure.
slow. Do you think it's time for big companies to start coming back to the offices now?
So the question was, the question at the end was, do I think it's time for the companies to start bringing their employees back? I've talked to most of our big employers. I've encouraged them to bring employees back as soon as they are comfortable doing so. I suspect that it's still going to be a little while. I suspect that to a large extent that will depend on the pace of the vaccination effort. I think every employer is going to make their own decisions about when they bring everybody back. And to be honest, if they bring everybody back, it may be that this pandemic has changed the way companies think about the need to have employees in person in the office every day. I think you're likely to see some employers be more flexible even at the end of this. And so we're going to have a lot of work to do in partnership with our businesses and just as a city to think about the implications of those shifts and what we have to do to make sure that we are as strong and as vibrant and as active a city as we can possibly be. So bottom line is I'd love to see them all come back, but I also think it's probably going to be a little while.
Is there any efforts the city is doing to kind of build that consumer confidence? What we've heard from restaurants is that even though they can open to more capacity, that they don't have the room, or people still aren't that comfortable.
I think that the single biggest thing we can do to get people comfortable is get people vaccinated. I think for many people, the vaccination is the necessary comfort, and we've just got to keep pushing as hard as we can. And you're as familiar as anyone with the projections that the federal government and the state are making about the pace at which that supply will be ramping up in the weeks and months ahead. We're thrilled that the eligibility window has opened up wider and faster. That's going to make a big difference in our community. We have a younger community here in Hartford. We want to be a lot more creative and aggressive about our mobile testing, our outreach efforts. When we don't have to so tightly target it at a particular age group, we can be a lot more effective at just showing up at a spot and getting anybody who wants to come in vaccinated. So we're thrilled about that that opening up of eligibility, and we're going to keep pushing on in every way we can. The other thing, to the point of what we can do to help drive business to our restaurants and to our businesses in general, is this is something I talked about in my State of the City address. It's something I've talked about a couple of times since. We're going to be really focused on activating the city, on making sure that those arts and cultural events, those sports events, those festivals that always bring lots of people into the city, Hartford residents and from beyond the city of Hartford, that those things are happening. They want to make sure they're happening safely, that they're happening responsibly, but we want to make sure that this summer we are creating as much of that energy as possible, and we think that'll benefit all of our businesses as well. Lastly, I would just say to everybody, as I've said many times before, even if you're not comfortable sitting in a restaurant, please order takeout. It makes a big difference. You want these restaurants to be here at the other end. They've worked so hard to stay open. They've worked so hard to keep their employees employed in many cases. They've worked so hard to get through this, not just for themselves, but for our community. So if you've got the ability to order out, please do it. And support your local Hartford restaurants, and do it as often as you can. It makes a big difference.
How are the city's positive test numbers looking? I know that states were up yesterday.
So in early the question is how are our positivity numbers looking? They're looking pretty good compared to where we were. Just in absolute numbers, back in January we were seeing about 500 new cases a week. Right now we're seeing about 125 new cases a week. The positivity rate on the testing has dropped significantly. There have been a few days where we've been actually under the state positivity rate, which was the first time that had happened, I think, since the beginning of the pandemic. We were at 2.7% positivity, I believe, in our most recent data. Is that accurate? Say it again? Yeah. So I think 2.7% is our most recent, which is a dramatic improvement. But again, reason to continue what we're doing, not a reason to let our guard down.
Peter, can you or others lay on speak on the efforts over the weekend to kind of get out the vote format as far as getting people signed up for their vaccinations? How successful that was, and then more on what you plan on doing in that effort to get people vaccinated?
Sure. So, as I said when I was talking about our contact tracers, it's not just a weekend effort. This is something we're doing every day. We've got folks making outbound calls to every number that we think belongs to somebody who's eligible for a vaccine, making calls to follow up on all of those folks who have filled out our vaccine interest form on our website, going out and knocking on doors, and then working with our partners, Hartford Hospital, Trinity, our federally qualified health centers, our pharmacies, to make sure that we can try to break down every possible barrier to make it easier to just get somebody slotted in those appointments and get them done. It remains a struggle. I mean, we're pushing hard, but we've got a long, long way to go. And I think the word you used to describe it is exactly right. We are treating this, and we need to treat this like a campaign. It's got to be a combination of boots on the ground, out there knocking on doors, people making phone calls, keeping track of that data as best we can, getting people, in this case, it's not get out to vote, it's get out to the vaccination site. And that's how we're treating this, and we're going to continue to ramp up. I think the April 5th date is a really significant date for us because it will allow us to run that outreach campaign in a much more effective way. You know, it's one thing to have to identify the eligible, 55-year-old person and get them to the site. It's another thing to be able to go out and take all comers and just cast a wide net and encourage anybody and everybody who is in the neighborhood of a pop-up site to come on and get vaccinated. And it's not just the pop-up sites. We've also established those neighborhood testing sites, like at Parker Memorial Center, like at the South End Senior Wellness Center. In basically every neighborhood in Hartford now, there is a vaccination site that is open. And again, if you need to go out of your neighborhood and you don't have a car, we will give you a ride.
Saying you guys were calling, every number you thought might be for someone who's eligible, where are you getting these numbers?
So a variety of places. To identify individuals who we thought were eligible, we looked at our voter file. We looked at our tax records. We looked at those who've applied for the rental rebate for seniors. Where we had phone numbers attached to those, we used those. We also went out and purchased some lists that we thought, commercial lists of phone numbers to try to do some number matching to be able to do that. Sorry. Right. Do you want to? Hey, let me ask Liani just to address any of the things that I've said so far, and to answer anything more specific on that as well.
So the mayor has hit sort of the high points, but we're also going to be, because our cases are so low right now, our contact tracers will be going through our files since last May of anyone that had tested positive in the city and start doing outbound phone calls to them to see if they're interested in being vaccinated. So they've already developed some of these relationships. They've already done some of this outreach. These folks have already spoken to our contact tracers. So that process is starting in earnest this week, but they've been trained and they're starting that outreach this week to reach out to those individuals. But as the mayor has said, the April 5th date is critically important. We have a young population here in the city, median age of 32 and a half. And so with that April 5th date, we're preparing ourselves for what we think will be a large number of people that are interested. And that's what we've seen every time a new phase opens. We have a lot of interest and a lot of phone calls. And so we're working with all of our available resources and additional resources as needed to do that.
And are you guys scheduling an appointment for them in that moment when the contact tracers
Yes.
call? Yeah.
Yes, so we have the appointments for the appointment slots that we have for the supply that we get from the state on a weekly basis. Those are limited, obviously. We have many partners in the city, and so we've been working most closely at this point with Hartford Healthcare and Trinity Health, and so we're also scheduling directly into their appointment slots as well. So they're sharing. If we don't have an appointment that's available, that's convenient, they might, and so we're able to share those appointments and share those names and share those lists with their callers, and our callers are also able to schedule into theirs.
Thanks, Danny. I also just want to give one quick correction about the phone numbers. Rebecca, you had asked. We have not yet actually purchased the lists. We're in the process of purchasing commercial list matching service to be able to improve our contacts.
Is that a significant expense?
No. Any other questions? Okay. Terrific. Thank you very much. Great to see you all, and happy St. Patrick's Day. Stay healthy.